What if the person holding you back from your greatest life is not your enemy, your circumstances, or your past, but the version of you that you refuse to leave behind? Listen carefully. You cannot enter a new life while protecting an old identity. There comes a moment when you must look at yourself and say, I am grateful for who I was, but I refuse to remain who I have been. Your future requires a stronger you. Growth begins when you become uncomfortable with your own limitations. Most people do not fail because they lack potential. They fail because they become comfortable with familiar patterns. Familiar pain feels safer than unfamiliar growth. Familiar excuses feel easier than unfamiliar discipline. Familiar relationships, familiar habits, familiar thinking, and familiar environments can become invisible chains. You may call them normal because you have lived with them for so long, but normal does not always mean healthy, and comfortable does not always mean successful. There is an old version of you that knows how to survive, but survival is not the same as purpose. That version learned how to react, complain, delay, fear, and settle. Maybe it developed those behaviors because life was difficult. Maybe disappointment taught you to stop expecting much. Maybe rejection convinced you that you were not valuable. Maybe failure made you afraid to try again. But what protected you yesterday can imprison you tomorrow. You must understand something powerful. Your past may explain you, but it does not have permission to define you. You are not required to repeat yesterday simply because yesterday happened. You are not obligated to remain emotionally, mentally, spiritually, or intellectually where you were 5 years ago. You have permission to change your mind. You have permission to raise your standards. You have permission to walk away from habits that are destroying your future. Outgrowing yourself means becoming honest enough to recognize what must change. It means admitting that some attitudes cannot accompany you into your next season. It means accepting that your dreams demand a different level of discipline. You cannot ask for extraordinary results while practicing ordinary commitment. You cannot demand a transformed life while defending unchanged behavior. Your next chapter begins when you stop asking, "Why am I like this?" and start asking, "Who must I become?" That question changes everything. It moves your attention away from excuses and toward responsibility. It forces you to examine your thoughts, choices, habits, relationships, and priorities. And once you see what must change, you must have the courage to change it. One of the hardest things you will ever do is admit that your current mindset is too small for your future. You can have talent and still think too small. You can have opportunities and still behave like someone who has none. You can have resources and still sabotage yourself through fear. The greatest prison is sometimes not around you. It is inside the limits you have accepted in your mind. Think about a seed. A seed is buried in darkness before it becomes a tree. If that seed could speak, it might say, "Why am I being covered? Why am I being squeezed? Why is everything familiar disappearing?" But the pressure is not always punishment. Sometimes pressure is preparation. The darkness is not always destruction. Sometimes it is the environment where transformation begins. Your life works the same way. There are seasons when everything seems uncomfortable because you are being pushed beyond what you already know. You may lose interest in conversations that once entertained you. You may become tired of wasting hours on things that do not build you. You may start questioning habits you once defended. You may feel restless even though nothing is technically wrong. That restlessness can be a signal that your inner world has grown beyond your current environment. Do not run back to your old identity simply because growth feels lonely. The caterpillar cannot become a butterfly while demanding the comfort of the cocoon forever. At some point, the old form must break. Something familiar must end, so something greater can emerge. This is why you must challenge your thinking every day. Ask yourself, what am I believing that is keeping me small? Maybe you believe you are too late. Maybe you believe you are not intelligent enough. Maybe you believe your mistakes disqualify you. Maybe you believe successful people were simply lucky. Maybe you believe your family background determines your future. These beliefs may feel true because you have repeated them for years, but repetition does not make a limitation a fact. Replace limiting thoughts with responsible questions. Instead of saying, "I cannot do this," Ask, what do I need to learn? Instead of saying, nobody supports me, ask, how can I become capable enough to move forward even without applause? Instead of saying, I failed, say, what did this failure teach me? Your mind must become a place where possibility is stronger than fear. That does not mean pretending problems do not exist. It means refusing to let problems become your identity. You can acknowledge difficulty without surrendering your destiny. The old version of you asks for permission to begin. The new version begins and learns along the way. The old version waits until everything feels safe. The new version understands that courage often comes after movement, not before it. You cannot outgrow your old version without changing your habits. Motivation may inspire you for a moment, but habits determine what you repeatedly become. If you wake up every day and repeat the same thoughts, the same distractions, the same excuses, and the same behaviors, you should not expect a different life simply because you have a different dream. Your future is hidden inside your daily routine. Look at what you repeatedly do when nobody is watching. That is where your real transformation is happening. Not in the promises you make when you are emotional, but in the decisions you make when you are tired. Not in the goals you write down, but in the habits you protect. Start small, but start seriously. Wake up when you said you would. Finish what you started. Read something that expands your thinking. Learn a skill that increases your value. Exercise your body. Protect your attention. Spend less time consuming and more time creating. Stop giving your best energy to distractions and then offering your leftovers to your dreams. Discipline is not punishment. Discipline is self-respect in action. When you discipline yourself, you are saying, my future matters more than my temporary comfort. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you strengthen your identity. Every time you break a promise without a serious reason, you teach yourself that your own word cannot be trusted. Imagine a person who decides to become financially responsible. The old version spends first and thinks later. The new version plans before spending. The old version blames circumstances. The new version studies, saves, learns, and creates opportunities. The old version wants immediate pleasure. The new version understands delayed gratification. The same principle applies to relationships. You cannot become healthier while repeatedly choosing people who reinforce your worst behavior. Sometimes outgrowing yourself means outgrowing environments. Sometimes it means setting boundaries. Sometimes it means becoming comfortable saying no. Sometimes it means refusing to participate in conversations that destroy your peace. And sometimes the hardest person you must outgrow is the person you become around others. Perhaps you shrink because you want approval. Perhaps you pretend not to care because vulnerability scares you. Perhaps you make jokes about your dreams because you fear people will laugh if you fail. Stop performing for people who are not responsible for your future. Your habits should begin reflecting the person you claim you want to become. If you want wisdom, study. If you want strength, train. If you want peace, stop feeding chaos. If you want excellence, practice. If you want leadership, take responsibility. If you want purpose, become useful. You do not transform your life in one dramatic moment. You transform it through hundreds of ordinary decisions made consistently. One disciplined morning becomes a disciplined week. One disciplined week becomes a disciplined month. A disciplined month becomes a new identity. Force yourself to practice the behavior of your future before your future arrives. Become the person capable of carrying what you are asking for. There will come a time when growth demands that you stop seeking approval from people who only recognize your old identity. This can be painful because people become accustomed to who you were. When you change, they may question you. They may say you are acting differently. They may remind you of your mistakes. They may laugh at your new discipline because they benefited from your old distractions. Do not become angry with them. Understand that people often respond to the version of you they have known. If they have known you as someone who always says yes, your first no may surprise them. If they have known you as someone who constantly complains, your new responsibility may confuse them. If they have known you as someone who never finishes anything, your consistency may challenge their expectations. But you are not required to remain familiar, so someone else can remain comfortable. Imagine a young man who spends years surrounded by friends who mock ambition. Every time he talks about building something, they laugh. Every time he studies, they call him boring. Every time he refuses to waste the night, they say he has changed. Eventually, he realizes something painful. The people he calls friends are not necessarily helping him become who he is capable of becoming. So he changes his environment. He does not announce a dramatic departure. He simply changes his priorities. He spends more time learning. He meets people who are building. He listens to people who challenge him. Slowly, his standards rise. His conversations change. His confidence changes. His results change. That is what environment can do. Your surroundings constantly teach you what is normal. If everyone around you accepts mediocrity, excellence may feel extreme. If everyone complains, gratitude may feel strange. If everyone avoids responsibility, accountability may feel uncomfortable. You must become intentional about what you allow to influence your mind. This does not mean abandoning everyone who is struggling. It means refusing to make struggle your permanent identity. You can love people without copying their limitations. You can respect people without surrendering your standards. You can remain humble without remaining stagnant. Sometimes growth requires disappointing people. Let them misunderstand you. Let them say you are different. You are supposed to be different. Growth means different thinking, different choices, different priorities, and eventually different results. But be careful. Outgrowing people does not mean becoming arrogant. The strongest person in the room does not need to announce superiority. True growth makes you more patient, more responsible, more compassionate, and more disciplined. If your growth makes you despise everyone else, you have not matured. You have simply replaced one weakness with another. Your goal is not to prove that you are better than your old environment. Your goal is to become better than your old self. Stop asking everyone to understand your transformation. Sometimes your results will explain what your words cannot. One of the greatest battles in personal growth is learning to face your own excuses. Excuses are dangerous because they often sound reasonable. You say, "I am tired." Maybe you are. You say, "I do not have enough time." Maybe your schedule is difficult. You say, "Nobody gave me an opportunity." Maybe opportunities have been limited. But there is a question you must eventually ask. What can I do with what I have? You may not control where you started, but you can influence where you go next. Imagine two people who experience the same setback. One says, "This proves my life will never change." The other says, "This is painful, but what can I learn from it?" The event is the same, the response is different, and over time, responses create destinations. You must stop negotiating with the part of yourself that always wants comfort. There is a voice inside you that says, "Tomorrow." Another says, "Just one more hour." Another says, "You deserve to relax." Rest is important, but constant comfort will make you weak if you never challenge yourself. There are things you know you should do. You know you should make the call. You know you should study. You know you should apologize. You know you should stop wasting money. You know you should leave the destructive habit behind. You know you should begin the project. You know you should take care of your body. The problem is often not knowledge. The problem is obedience to what you already know. Your next level may not require more information. It may require more application. Do not wait for motivation to arrive before you act. Action often creates motivation. When you begin, momentum begins. When momentum begins, confidence grows. When confidence grows, fear loses some of its power. Start before you feel ready. If you make a mistake, adjust. If you fail, learn. If you get rejected, improve. If you become tired, rest intelligently and continue. If someone criticizes you, examine the criticism without allowing it to become your identity. Growth requires emotional maturity because not every painful experience deserves a dramatic reaction. Sometimes the mature response is silence. Sometimes it is patience. Sometimes it is forgiveness. Sometimes it is distance. Sometimes it is simply moving forward. You must become stronger than your impulses. You cannot allow every emotion to control every decision. Anger cannot lead your life. Fear cannot lead your life. Jealousy cannot lead your life. Temporary disappointment cannot determine permanent choices. The mature version of you pauses before reacting. The mature version asks, will this decision help the person I am becoming? That question can save your future. Every time you choose purpose over impulse, you outgrow yourself. Every time you choose responsibility over excuses, you outgrow yourself. Every time you choose courage over fear, you outgrow yourself. And eventually, you will look back and realize that the person who once seemed impossible to become was becoming through every difficult decision you made. There is a difference between wanting a better life and becoming capable of living one. Many people want success, but they do not want the responsibility success requires. They want influence without discipline. They want wealth without learning. They want healthy relationships without emotional maturity. They want leadership without accountability. They want a powerful future while protecting weak habits. But life responds to capacity. If you want to carry more, you must become stronger. If you want greater responsibility, you must become more reliable. If you want greater influence, you must become more trustworthy. If you want greater opportunities, you must develop greater preparation. Think about a person who suddenly receives everything they once prayed for. If their character has not grown, what they receive may destroy them. Money can magnify irresponsibility. Influence can magnify insecurity. Success can magnify arrogance. Opportunity can expose unpreparedness. That is why your preparation matters more than your impatience. Perhaps you are asking for a bigger platform when you should be building deeper character. Perhaps you are asking for a larger opportunity when you should be developing greater skill. Perhaps you are asking for recognition when you should be learning how to serve. Do not rush the process that is preparing you. A farmer does not scream at a seed because it has not become a tree overnight. Growth takes stages. First there is preparation, then development, then evidence, then fruit. Your life has stages too. Do not compare your beginning to someone else's harvest. You may be looking at their results while ignoring the years they spent developing in private. You may see the success, but not the sacrifices. You may see the confidence, but not the failures that built it. You may see the platform, but not the preparation. Your responsibility is not to become them. Your responsibility is to become you at your highest level. Ask yourself what your future self would do today. Would that person waste these hours? Would that person keep feeding the same insecurity? Would that person continue accepting disrespect? Would that person remain addicted to distraction? Would that person keep delaying the work? Your future self is built through present decisions. Sometimes you must make choices that your current emotions dislike, but your future will appreciate. Save instead of spending. Study instead of scrolling. Practice instead of complaining. Build instead of comparing. Forgive instead of carrying bitterness. Leave instead of begging. Start instead of waiting. Every sacrifice has a message. It says, I believe my future is worth more than this moment. That belief changes behavior. The old you asks, what do I feel like doing? The growing you asks, what needs to be done? That shift is powerful. It moves you from impulse to intention, from reaction to responsibility, from wishing to building. You are not trying to become perfect. You are becoming dependable. You are becoming disciplined. You are becoming wise. You are becoming capable. And the stronger you become internally, the more prepared you will be when life finally places greater opportunities in your hands. You must also outgrow the need to be constantly understood. This is one of the most difficult forms of maturity, because human beings naturally want validation. We want people to recognize our intentions. We want them to understand our pain. We want them to acknowledge our effort. But if your peace depends on everyone understanding you, you have handed control of your emotional life to other people. Not everyone will understand your journey. Some people only see your decision, not the pain that produced it. They see you becoming distant, but do not see the healing you needed. They see you becoming disciplined, but do not see the years you wasted. They see your confidence, but do not see the insecurity you fought privately. You cannot explain every chapter to every person. Sometimes you must let your life speak. A person who once struggled with confidence may begin speaking with courage. People may call it arrogance. A person who once accepted disrespect may establish boundaries. People may call it selfishness. A person who once wasted money may become financially disciplined. People may call it being cheap. A person who once stayed silent may finally speak. People may call it rebellion. Their interpretation does not determine your transformation. You need wisdom to know when criticism deserves attention and when it deserves release. Not every opinion is instruction. Not every accusation is truth. Not every rejection is evidence that you are wrong. Listen carefully, learn humbly, and keep moving. But do not use personal growth as an excuse to stop receiving correction. The old version of you may become defensive when challenged. The mature version asks, is there something here that can make me better? That question requires humility. Growth is not just adding good things. Sometimes it is removing things. Remove the need to always be right. Remove the habit of blaming. Remove the addiction to attention. Remove the fear of being alone. Remove the desire to impress people who do not share your values. Every removal creates space. You cannot fill a crowded room with something new until you make room for it. The same is true of your mind. If your mind is packed with resentment, comparison, fear, and constant distraction, where will wisdom live? Create mental space. Spend time in silence. Think, reflect, pray, journal, examine your choices. Ask yourself difficult questions. What am I avoiding? What am I pretending not to know? Where am I repeatedly making the same mistake? What behavior keeps producing the same result? Honest reflection can feel uncomfortable, but discomfort is often the doorway to change. Do not be afraid to meet yourself honestly. You are not examining yourself so you can hate yourself. You are examining yourself so you can improve yourself. Your mistakes are not your identity. They are information. Your weakness is not a life sentence. It is an invitation to develop strength. Your past is not a prison. It is a classroom. Learn the lesson, release the shame, and keep moving. The person you are becoming will require you to stop carrying everything the person you were carried. Eventually, you will discover that real transformation requires patience. In a world obsessed with instant results, patience can feel like weakness, but patience is not passivity. Patience is the strength to keep working when the reward has not appeared yet. Think about building a house. You do not begin with the roof. You begin with the foundation. The foundation is buried where nobody celebrates it. Nobody walks past a construction site and says, "What an incredible foundation." But without that invisible work, the beautiful structure cannot stand. Your character is your foundation. People may celebrate your achievements, but your achievements are only as strong as the person carrying them. That is why private growth matters. The hours nobody sees matter. The discipline nobody applauds matters. The decisions nobody knows about matter. Maybe you are currently in a hidden season. You are working, learning, changing, and nobody seems to notice. Do not assume nothing is happening. Roots grow before fruit appears. Your responsibility is to keep becoming. Read when nobody tells you to read. Practice when nobody praises you. Save when nobody is watching. Keep your word when nobody would know if you broke it. Choose integrity when dishonesty would be easier. This is where identity changes. You become someone you can trust. And once you trust yourself, you stop needing constant external motivation. You know that you will show up. You know that you will keep learning. You know that when life becomes difficult, you will not immediately run back to old patterns. That confidence is earned. You cannot affirm yourself into discipline while refusing to practice discipline. Positive words are useful, but evidence is stronger. Give yourself evidence that you can change. Wake up earlier for 1 week. Finish one project. Keep one promise. Read one book. Save one amount of money. Have one difficult conversation. Take one courageous step. Then repeat it. Small victories become evidence. Evidence becomes confidence. Confidence becomes courage. Courage creates action. Action produces results. Results reinforce identity. That is how transformation becomes permanent. Do not despise small beginnings because they look insignificant. A mountain is climbed one step at a time. A strong body is built through repeated training. A powerful mind is built through repeated learning. A trustworthy character is built through repeated choices. Your future will not suddenly appear. It will emerge from what you repeatedly do. So stop waiting for the perfect moment. There will never be a day when fear disappears completely. There will never be a day when every obstacle disappears. There will never be a day when you feel completely prepared. Move anyway. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is deciding that your purpose matters more than your fear. Your old version wants certainty. Your new version develops faith. Your old version wants guarantees. Your new version accepts responsibility. Your old version wants applause. Your new version values progress. Keep building. One day the habits that once required tremendous effort will become normal. The discipline that once felt painful will become natural. The courage that once seemed impossible will become part of who you are. That is when you will know you have truly outgrown yourself. There will be moments when you feel like giving up because transformation becomes exhausting. You will have days when the old version of you calls loudly. It will whisper, "Go back. This is too hard." You were happier when you expected less. You were safer when you never tried. You were comfortable when you stopped caring. Listen, but do not obey. You are allowed to rest, but you are not allowed to surrender your future simply because growth became uncomfortable. Every meaningful transformation has resistance. The body resists new training. The mind resists new thinking. The emotions resist new boundaries. The ego resists correction. That resistance does not automatically mean you are going in the wrong direction. Sometimes resistance means you are finally challenging what has controlled you. Consider someone who has spent years believing they are not capable. The first time they attempt something difficult, fear appears. They make mistakes. They feel embarrassed. They want to quit. But instead of interpreting discomfort as proof of inability, they interpret it as part of learning. They try again, then again. Eventually, something changes. The task that once terrified them becomes familiar. Their skill improves. Their confidence rises. The fear that once controlled them becomes smaller. That is the power of repetition. You do not defeat fear by thinking about defeating it. You defeat fear by repeatedly taking responsible action while fear is present. Do not wait until you feel fearless. Move while your hands shake. Speak while your voice trembles. Begin while you doubt yourself. Keep going while the results are invisible. And remember this, outgrowing yourself is not about becoming someone you are not. It is about removing what prevents your real potential from appearing. You are not trying to become perfect. You are trying to become whole. You can be ambitious and humble. You can be strong and compassionate. You can be confident and teachable. You can have boundaries and still love people. You can pursue excellence without believing you are better than others. True growth creates balance. It does not simply make you louder. It makes you wiser. It does not simply make you stronger. It makes you more responsible with your strength. It does not simply give you confidence. It gives you character. Ask yourself tonight, what part of me must end for the next part of me to begin? Maybe it is procrastination. Maybe it is victim thinking. Maybe it is the need for approval. Maybe it is the fear of failure. Maybe it is the habit of returning to what already proved it could not fulfill you. Whatever it is, confront it. You cannot negotiate forever with the same weakness and expect a different life. There is a point where you must make a decision. Not next month, not when everything becomes easy. Now, choose the future. Choose discipline. Choose courage. Choose growth. Choose the version of yourself that is waiting on the other side of your excuses. Because the life you want may not require a miracle first. It may require a decision first. And that decision is this: I will no longer betray my future to protect my past. Now imagine meeting yourself 5 years from today. Imagine standing face to face with the person you could become if you stopped wasting your potential. What would that person say to you? Maybe they would say, "Thank you for not quitting." Maybe they would say, "Thank you for learning when you were embarrassed. Thank you for walking away when staying would have destroyed you. Thank you for choosing discipline when comfort was easier. Thank you for believing that your life could become different." That future person is not magic. That person is built by you. Every decision you make today is casting a vote for who you become tomorrow. When you choose to study, you vote for wisdom. When you choose discipline, you vote for strength. When you choose integrity, you vote for character. When you choose courage, you vote for freedom. When you choose forgiveness, you vote for peace. When you choose consistency, you vote for achievement. And when you choose excuses, you also cast a vote. That is why small decisions matter. You may think one wasted evening is insignificant, but repeated enough times, one evening becomes a habit. One habit becomes an identity. One identity shapes a life. The same is true in the opposite direction. One disciplined morning becomes another. One courageous conversation makes the next easier. One completed goal creates confidence for another. One healthy boundary teaches you that you can protect your peace. Transformation compounds. Do not underestimate what consistency can do. Your old version may demand immediate evidence. Your new version understands that growth takes time. Your old version compares. Your new version measures progress against yesterday. Your old version says, "I am not there yet." Your new version says, "But I am not where I used to be." That is progress. Celebrate movement without becoming satisfied with stagnation. Be grateful for how far you have come while remaining committed to where you are going. And when you fail, do not turn one bad decision into a permanent identity. Correct yourself quickly. You missed the workout. Start again. You wasted the day. Win the evening. You made a mistake. Learn the lesson. You lost an opportunity. Prepare for the next one. You disappointed yourself. Forgive yourself and rebuild trust through action. Do not spend 10 years punishing yourself for something that happened in one season. Your life is too valuable to be controlled by shame. The goal is not to erase your past. The goal is to use your past wisely. Let your scars teach you without allowing them to imprison you. Let your failures humble you without convincing you that you are a failure. Let your disappointments mature you without making you bitter. Let your success encourage you without making you arrogant. Become someone who can carry both victory and difficulty with wisdom. This is what it means to outgrow yourself. You are not simply changing what you do. You are changing what you tolerate, what you believe, what you pursue, what you protect, and what you expect from yourself. You are becoming the kind of person your future requires, so keep going. The old you may still speak, but you do not have to answer. You have spent enough time wondering whether you are capable. Now it is time to prove it through action. You do not need another year of promises that begin with excitement and end with excuses. You need a decision that becomes a lifestyle. Decide that you will no longer be controlled by your weakest impulses. Decide that your mornings will have purpose. Decide that your attention will have value. Decide that your words will have integrity. Decide that your relationships will have boundaries. Decide that your goals will have deadlines. Decide that your failures will become lessons. Decide that your future will no longer be sacrificed for temporary comfort. You do not need to change everything today, but you must change something. Choose one habit and attack it with consistency. Choose one skill and develop it. Choose one weakness and confront it. Choose one goal and move it forward. Then tomorrow, do it again. Do not make transformation complicated. The old version of you wants a dramatic moment because dramatic moments are exciting. The new version understands that ordinary consistency is more powerful than temporary excitement. You do not need to feel inspired every morning. You need to become committed. Commitment says, "I will continue when the feeling disappears." Commitment says, "I will continue when nobody applauds." Commitment says, "I will continue when progress is slow." Commitment says, "I will continue because this matters." That is how you become dangerous to your old limitations. Your old identity survives through repetition, so break the repetition. If you always complain, practice gratitude. If you always delay, act immediately. If you always react, pause. If you always spend, plan. If you always quit, finish something small. If you always seek approval, make one decision based on your values. If you always hide, take one courageous step into visibility. Every new behavior weakens the old pattern. Eventually, you will look back and realize you are no longer fighting the same battles. Not because life became perfect, but because you became stronger. That is the deeper goal. Do not build a life that requires everything to go right for you to remain stable. Build character strong enough to remain steady when circumstances change. Storms will come. People will disappoint you. Plans will fail. Opportunities will disappear. Some doors will close. But if your foundation is strong, you will adjust without collapsing. You will learn without losing hope. You will bend without breaking. You will continue without needing everything to make sense. That strength is developed, not inherited. It is developed through every difficult decision where you choose what is right over what is easy. So when tomorrow arrives, do not ask, "Do I feel like changing?" Ask, "What would the stronger version of me do right now?" Then do that. Ask again in the afternoon. Ask again when you are tired. Ask again when you are angry. Ask again when nobody is watching. The question will become a compass, and every time you follow it, you move farther away from the person you used to be and closer to the person you were created to become. Your next level is not waiting for a perfect version of you. It is waiting for a committed version of you. Become that person now. So here is your challenge. When this message ends, do not simply feel inspired and return to the same routine. Inspiration without action becomes another form of procrastination. Take a moment and identify the old version of yourself that you have been protecting. What does that version believe? What does that version fear? What does that version repeatedly do? What does that version tolerate? What does that version avoid? What does that version keep postponing? Write it down. Then identify the person you are becoming. How does that person think? How does that person speak? How does that person spend time? How does that person handle pressure? How does that person treat people? How does that person respond to failure? How does that person protect purpose? Then make one decision that proves you are serious, not tomorrow, today. Delete the distraction. Make the call. Open the book. Start the plan. Apologize. Forgive. Save the money. Set the boundary. Take the first step. You do not need to see the entire staircase. You need enough courage to take the next step. And when you take that step, take another. There will be days when you feel powerful and days when you feel weak. Do not build your transformation around feelings. Build it around commitment. There will be days when people praise you and days when people criticize you. Do not build your identity around opinions. Build it around character. There will be days when you succeed and days when you fail. Do not build your confidence around perfect results. Build it around your willingness to learn and continue. You are allowed to become someone new. You are allowed to change your standards. You are allowed to leave old patterns behind. You are allowed to become more disciplined. You are allowed to become more disciplined. You are allowed to think bigger. You are allowed to dream again. You are allowed to become stronger than the person who once thought survival was enough. Do not apologize for growth. Do not shrink because someone is uncomfortable with your transformation. Do not return to an old identity simply because it is familiar. Your future is calling for a version of you that your past has never seen. Answer that call. There is more in you than you have demonstrated. There is more courage in you than fear has allowed you to show. There is more wisdom in you than your mistakes have revealed. There is more strength in you than your difficult seasons have exposed. But potential without development remains potential. So develop yourself. Train your mind. Strengthen your character. Protect your attention. Improve your skills. Choose your environment carefully. Serve people. Keep learning. Keep moving. And remember this. You do not outgrow your old version by hating who you were. You outgrow that version by becoming grateful for the lessons and courageous enough to apply them. Thank the old you for surviving. Then become the new you who knows how to build. Thank the old you for learning, then become the new you who knows how to lead. Thank the old you for enduring, then become the new you who knows how to create. Your story is not finished. Your best chapter does not have to resemble your previous chapter. And the moment you decide that your past will no longer control your future, everything begins to change. So rise, move, build, grow. And when the old version calls you back, remember why you left. Do not turn around. Your future is ahead of you. Keep walking toward it.